climate crisis is real. We're facing some really big challenges, from the healthcare crisis, affordable housing, crazy costs for healthcare, all of the things that are happening in our society. And I want our next congressperson to be someone who's not just gonna warm a seat, flip the button the right way maybe sometimes, but who's gonna do the hard work to organize, to write those bills and get them over the finish line. And you guys, we're so close to that finish line right now with this campaign, and what we need is all of you. So government is a team sport. Getting Aaron elected is a team sport. I don't know if you guys have ever watched those crazy bicycle race where there's like the fellas on the bicycles and they're surrounded by a whole team of people helping, keeping pace, giving them food, cutting the winds. That's the Peloton. You guys are the Peloton. So we need absolutely everything going on from all of you guys to help Aaron go. You don't have to ride a bike. You don't have to do anything crazy like that. All you need to do is pick up the little piece of paper you have that was on your seat when you sat down. Can everybody pick it up? I can see you. Can you pick it up? Excellent. Okay, see you. Flip it over to the back. There's so many ways for you guys to take action in these last days to get Aaron elected. So what I need every single person in this room to do is to do at least one of these actions. You can scan this little QR code with your phone if you have one, pick from a pull-down menu, so many different ways to help. Or you can go to any of these websites, pick one of these ways to help. Or if you're like, Sue, I hate the internet, you can text. You can text this number at the bottom, 30403, and they'll tell you ways to volunteer. Or if all of those aren't quite your speed, I want every single person in here, all 1,200 of you, to text or call 3 of your friends and encourage them to make a plan to get out to vote by September 5th. If all of us got at least 3 people to come out and vote, there's no way Aaron would win this thing. So you guys, everybody hold up your paper. You all have your homework. We're all gonna do it. We're all gonna get at least 3 to 5 of our friends, and we're gonna do at least one of the things on the back of this sheet. I know it. And with that, I'm gonna turn over to our next speaker, the amazing Representative Leonela Felix from Pawtucket.
And that is, why do I support Aaron Regunberg for Congress? And the real question that I often can sense that people are asking me is really, why do I, a Black Afro-Latina woman, am supporting Aaron over other people of color who are running? And that's a very legit question to ask me, right? It's a fair question, but the answer is very simple. More than identity politics, Rhode Island needs a champion who will fight to ensure that families not only survive, but that they thrive. The only candidate with a track record to do so, to fight for progressive policies, is Arron. As Sue mentioned, my name is Leonela Felix. I go by Leo, and I represent Pawtucket's District 61 as a state representative. As a community advocate, I have fought for issues affecting families, from making sure that we raise wages to criminal legal reform and more. And this is actually how I met Aaron. He was a legislator, and I was working at a local nonprofit, advocating for our issues that affect our Latino community. He reached out to me to discuss some of his priorities, some of his legislation, and find different ways that we could work together. My journey into politics wasn't really planned for. As someone directly impacted by the criminal legal system, I really know firsthand the struggles of having to struggle to find housing. I know the struggles in terms of not being able to go to school because of one mistake, but the reality is that we're more than just our mistakes. So you can really understand when I literally laughed out loud when Aaron suggested that I run for office. No, I told them absolutely not. No way in hell. And here I am. Being an advocate at the State House, and I don't know how many of you have gone to the State House in previous years, but being at the State House, I really didn't see that place as a welcoming space for people like me. But Arron believed in me even when I didn't. So when I decided to run, Arron was the only elected leader to publicly endorse my campaign. The only one. He came out, he taught me how to knock on doors, he taught me how to make the very dreaded fundraising calls. He donated his time, he donated his money. He came out in full support. Not just that very superficial type of support, very strong support. The only elected leader, and that says a lot. I ran as a Working Families Party candidate, and Arron is endorsed. WFP because we both believe that working people should come first. Isn't that like a really radical idea? I wonder why would we ever believe something so radical? Right? And it's a shame, right? Really, we need a leader who will stand up for families and not corporations. And that is he sought to reform the use of solitary confinement, which is a fight that I continue at the State House today. Because of Aaron's efforts, every working person in Rhode Island has access to paid sick leave. And these are just some of the many progressive policies that Arron has fought for and will continue to fight in Washington for all of us. And in fact, Arron is the only candidate who is running who can actually stand by his track record of supporting families in our state. So when they ask me, why do I support Arron? For these and many more reasons is why I support his run for Congress. I'll give him my time, give him my money, give him my efforts. And if every single one of us who is here today, who's at home listening, does the same thing, we will win this race. Aaron's passion is contagious. His commitment for affordable housing, quality education, and for a clean environment reflects the very essence of Rhode Island's spirit. He understands that progress isn't just about policies, it's also about people. It's about all of us coming together for a brighter future. So my friends, as we rally behind Arron, let's remember that this is our moment. Our chance to shape the course of history. Let's go out there and make Arron's journey to Congress a reality. And we're not doing this alone. I am really thrilled to introduce a powerhouse, a woman who has been an unwavering advocate for Pawtucket, someone who embodies the spirit of public service. So I want to welcome State Representative Cherie Cruz. I just want to add to, while Leo was running,
I was at a protest in front of district court, some criminal legal reform advocacy, and I remember Aaron came up to me and he said, listen, there's someone running in Pawtucket, someone who's been impacted, and she needs your help because no one else is supporting. And I remember leaving right away, getting on the phone to call Leo's camp to help. And that was one of the major times I remember helping in a campaign with someone running for office. So I'm so happy to work alongside Leo up there at the State House. My name is Cherie Cruz, and I'm a State Representative of Pawtucket, the city where I was born and raised. I'm someone who grew up in deep poverty in Pawtucket. Both my parents, when I was born, they were formerly incarcerated and never had the right to vote. It wasn't until 2006 that I got my right to vote back. I still can't believe I'm here on this stage today as a Rhode Island State Representative. Like Arron and Leo and advocates that make sure that those who've been impacted by that system have a right to vote and to run for elected office. It's such an honor to be here with all of you here today supporting Arron, as well as two incredible individuals, namely U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders and our next U.S. State Representative, Aaron Regunberg. I know both of them place action over words and make it their life's work that is grounded in grassroots advocacy for real change. I met Arron as a mom of four while I was a first-generation college student at Brown University almost 15 years ago. Throughout that time, I watched Arron organize and fight on the ground and fought alongside him. I fought alongside Arron for criminal legal reforms, where we linked arms with Arron outside the only private prison advocating to have it closed down. Spent long hours at the State House advocating for his bill to end solitary confinement. And push to end policies of the failed war on drugs. This fight's personal to me. Personal because I and many of my family members and loved ones within my community have been ever harmed by these failed policies. I and many of my family members experienced homelessness. Now as a tenant organizer with Reclaiming Rhode Island. An org that was founded by volunteer leaders of our state Bernie's 2020 campaign. We fight alongside fellow tenants against slumlord abuses and for access to housing for so many struggling to get by. That's right. That's why we need Arron in DC. Because we need an organizer, we need a fighter like Arron to get big things done on housing and who we know will fight for housing justice. I've also fought alongside Arron in campaigns, as you heard. Arron has done so much for me and others like me who've been impacted by the criminal legal system, who never believed we belonged or had a chance. Arron provided that belief and encouragement, along with support from the Working Families Party. That's right, because that's what we need, all of us together to fight. And I know that Arron, and I trust Arron, to do the right thing, not because it's popular, but because it's right.
Yeah.
That's why I ask you to join me in supporting Aaron Regunberg for Congress. That's right. representing us in District 1. Can I get some You'll see me out there supporting that vote. So I want to thank you again, all of you who are here supporting Arron. And like I said, let's go. We're going to get Arron to Washington, and we need every one of you to fight alongside of us. Next up, I'd like to introduce another powerhouse, another badass woman organizer and labor leader. The New York Times had named her America's most powerful flight attendant. That's right. Let's hear it for the International President of the Association of Flight Attendants, Sarah Nelson.
District One, how are you doing? It is a thrill to be here. My name is Sarah Nelson. I'm the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA, representing 50,000 flight attendants at 19 different airlines. And we even have some Breeze flight attendants in the audience tonight. They are organizing to become part of AFA. Boston-based flight attendant, and a 27-year, in fact, I just had my anniversary, union flight attendant. And when I got to Boston, my parents were kind of pissed because I went to this liberal arts school that was a lot of money. We split it. I had a lot of student loans to pay off too, but they were pissed until they got the free flight benefits 6 months later. But I got there, and this is 1996, and it was 11 years after the flight attendants joined the pilots in a solidarity strike in 1985, which is one of the only strikes that happened after Ronald Reagan fired all the air traffic controllers in 1981 and told corporate America that it was an all-out assault on unions, on the right to strike, on our right to collectively bargain. And we've seen union density drop at the same time that productivity has gone through the roof and wages have remained flat. We're fighting for the same things that the labor movement was fighting for 100 years ago. My union was formed by a bunch of brave women who had to quit when they turned 30 or got married or got pregnant. They had to step on a weight scale until 1993. You couldn't be a man. We fought for the right to have men to have equal rights on the job too. You're welcome, guys. And we won one of the first contracts, definitely first contract in the airline industry, to have domestic partner benefits, which was the first rung in fighting for marriage equality for people across the country. Boston, the company failed to pay me. And it was my union that helped me out. That was my introduction to my union. But my union also talked about the importance of solidarity and which side we're on. And I got an incredible education. And then came 9/11, 5 years into my career. And Amy, who was a friend of mine who commuted from here in Providence, was on flight 175, a flight that I flew regularly. It's the flight that flew into the South Tower of the World Trade Center, and you can picture it because every camera was trained on those towers after American Airlines Flight 11 had hit the North Tower 17 minutes earlier. I know the exact time that my friends died. Amy, Michael, another Amy,
Alicia, Al, Catherine, Jesus, Marianne, and Robert. And while we were mourning our friends, there were corporate capitalists who were thinking about how they were going to use this moment as a crisis to redefine our jobs, to take away our pensions, to cut our pay, to make us work harder for less, to shift the cost of health care to us. So I had a first-hand seat of what it means when Mother Jones, 100 years ago, when she was fighting against child labor, circling this country, which we have to do again, can you believe it? She said, the capitalists say there is no need of labor organizing, except the fact that they themselves are continually organizing and show us their real beliefs. Right. The capitalists want the most labor for the least amount of money, including slavery. Labor wants the most money for the least amount of labor, and we should get any innovation in our pockets. A 20-hour work week as we move forward here. She went on to say, labor produced all the riches in this country and built the world's palaces, but neither dwells in those palaces nor spends the profits that we create. If you would only realize that you hold the whole solution in your hand. For if every worker in America, across every industry, were simply to stop working, the capitalists would yield to any and all demands because the world could simply not go on. So I remember when I was 5 years old in Miss Muldoon's kindergarten class, and every single morning, me and the other 5-year-olds would stand there with our hands over our hearts, looking up at the flag and saying the Pledge of Allegiance that ended with, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, I thought that was a solemn promise that we were making to each other. And so, when it was time to stop Donald Trump in his tracks of trying to distract us with racist fear-mongering, talking about a government shutdown that went on for 35 days over a border wall, supposedly, what that was really about was trying to complete what the GOP had been trying to do for 50 years, which is completely dismantle our government. You see, if there was a major accident, power would accrue to the executive. If there was a terrorist attack, power would accrue to the executives and they could make change. Don't worry, we'll save you, we'll privatize everything. And if nothing happened, they would say that their attack on federal workers was right, that we don't need all that bureaucracy. Look, everything's fine. There was no political solution there. And so we said, we're going to strike, and the entire labor movement needs to talk about a general strike to end this shutdown. Day 34, Congress again voted down the solution to reopen the government. And the next morning, a few air traffic controllers, 10, called in sick because they said they could no longer safely do their jobs. And a few flights started to cancel in LaGuardia. Wasn't anything more than when a few raindrops fall. But we said, Mitch McConnell, can you hear us now? And the GOP knew that there was something very much at stake here. Workers were about to get a taste of our power, and everything would change in that moment if we did, and instead they reopened the government in 2 hours. So we have to understand that this country is for the people. That's what it says. That's what it says right up front, doesn't it? And in order to form a more perfect union, the people need unions. Women especially run unions, join unions. We need you like never before. But Regunberg gets this. We don't need, the solution here is not just sending people to Congress, not just electing people into position and expecting that they're going to do it all for us. Because we don't just exist in a democracy. We work in an economy that is capitalist, which is all about profits. It is not about people. And so if we want this country to be about people, if we want to pass the popular policies that we can put in place, raising the minimum wage, getting sick leave for workers, another rung in Aaron's belt. If we want to take on the existential crisis of our time, take on the climate crisis, and make sure the capitalists are already organizing. You know, some of them are building dick rockets to go to Mars while they leave the rest of us on the burning earth. To organize. We do not have the luxury to wait to organize because what they're hoping, the 4 Ds of union busters, is divide, delay, distract, and demoralized. Well, people all over this district here in Rhode Island and people all over this country are not going to allow them to demoralize us. We're not going to allow them to divide us. We have more in common than anything that ever could divide us. Feel the burn. Because that means we're getting stronger. Struggle makes us stronger. We can't shrink away from that. We have to embrace it and take it on together. And understand that the things that we won 100 years ago, Medicare, Social Security, the right to join a union, the right to strike, the 8-hour day, the weekends, these are applause lines now. Who has an 8-hour day? Who doesn't work on the weekend? Who owns their own time? Who can call in sick when you're sick and take care of your family? Well, here in Rhode Island you can, thanks to Arron. But these are the same fights. In 1945, when our union was formed, in 1946, when we got our first contract, there were a few things in that contract. There was a seniority list to make sure that managers could no longer try to coerce flight attendants to trade sex for schedules. There was an 8-hour day. There was a huge pay raise, and there was a disciplinary grievance process. But that 8-hour day that we won in that first contract was not because the flight attendants had just organized and used power on our own. It was because working people all across this country had said that we deserve to have a life. We deserve to have bread and roses too. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of work. So we have to do that again. Our rights are never absolute. People fought and died for those rights. And today it's our turn. And it's our turn to fight by sending people who understand this to Congress and by continuing to organize right here and by making our political system mirror our unions, where we come together and solve the great problems of our time, but not with the ideas from those corporate boardrooms, because let me tell you something, they do not have the corner market on smarts. Nope. Machinery works, understands how to build things, understands how to get solutions. unity has showed the rest of the country what is possible when we come together. Bernie Sanders is the most important voice for unions in America. Fighting for workers right now. I love Bernie, I love Aaron, and we're going to do this together, Rhode Island. Let's go.
Hello, Providence! Hello, Rhode Island! Wow, you have no idea how beautiful you look right now. My name's Aaron Regunberg, and I want to thank you all so much for coming together today and joining our fight for the future we deserve. Because that is what this campaign is about. It's about the future. My wife Katie and I have a 2-year-old son, Asa, who's here today. And being a dad is amazing. But like a lot of parents, we worry about the future. Now, will our kids be safe at school from guns and mass shootings? Will they have clean air to breathe and a livable environment? Will we have a functioning democracy by the time they're old enough to vote? But when I'm up late at night, tossing and turning, worrying about these dangers, it's not just fear that I feel. I mean, I'm furious. Because it's not an accident that more kids die from guns in this country than anywhere else on the planet, right? It's not an accident that our climate is spiraling out of control, right? It's not an accident that so many working people are struggling right now, while corporate profits are literally hitting record highs. The gun industry, fossil fuel companies, corporate CEOs, and their Republican allies are creating and feeding these crises. Because they're making billions and billions of dollars off of them. Right? And meanwhile, while they're ripping us off and raking in that cash, they're trying to distract us. Right? They're trying to put the blame for the pain that folks are feeling right now onto immigrants. Right? Onto queer and trans folks. They're trying to sow division and hate among everyday people so we don't notice that it's them who's taking away our rights. Right? It's them who's attacking our democracy. So yes, there's a lot to be angry about right now. But I want to be clear, I'm not running for Congress because I'm angry. I'm running for Congress because I'm hopeful. And I want to talk about hope for a minute, and not just because it's on our state flag, but because I believe feeling hope is a really essential part of this work that we're a part of our movement, of our fight for justice, for a fair economy, for a government that works for people, not just corporations, and for a livable future. You know, hope isn't about blind confidence that everything's going to work out. And it's not about pretending that everything's okay when it's not. In fact, if everything were okay, we wouldn't really need hope. As a writer who I follow recently wrote, people assume you can't be heartbroken and hopeful at the same time. And of course you can, because hope is not happiness or confidence or inner peace. It's a commitment to searching for possibilities. I want to say that again. Hope is a commitment to search for possibilities.
Yes!
I think that's exactly right. And I think it's particularly apt when it comes to the climate crisis. Because when we think about climate, of course we're heartbroken, right? How could we not be when we think of the fires and the flooding and the fatal heat waves and the smoke that is now all too regularly blocking out our skies? And as I mentioned, I've got a 2-year-old son. So how could I not be heartbroken when I think of the security and wonder and beauty that he's missing out on, that's being taken from him as the world around us starts to break? But at the same time, I've got a 2-year-old son. So how can I not be committed to searching for possibilities, to save everything that we can save, as much security and wonder and beauty that we can still save for all of our kids? The truth about the climate crisis, and it's the same as the truth about our fights to defend our democracy from the rising threats of fascism, and our fight to make healthcare in this country a human right, in fact, not just an opportunity for corporations to profit. The truth about all of these fights is we only have one option, and that is to win. The stakes are too high. There are too many people counting on us. And so we can't let ourselves get overwhelmed or caught up in how uphill some of these battles might be. Because winning is the only option we have. And so we have to make it happen. And here's the thing, here's the good news. We can make it happen, right? We can secure a better future. We can win real change.
Yes, we can!
Yes, we can! And the reason I know that's possible, we have seen it here in Rhode Island. Right? I've been a part of working with many of the elected officials and organizers and volunteers and activists in this theater today to win real progressive policy change in our state, even when the powers that be were doing everything they could to stop us. I remember when I was first elected to the General Assembly, so many people said we'd never pass paid sick days. Right? There are too many corporations and conservative lawmakers lined up against it. But you know what? We organized. Right? We brought workers and small businesses and unions together. We knocked on doors. I organized with my legislative colleagues, the folks I often agreed with, and folks that I didn't always agree with. But together, we figured out how to get it done, so that over 100,000 Rhode Island workers who couldn't before could start caring for a loved one or recovering from an illness without having to worry about losing their pay. And that's the same approach that we took to winning the first pay increase for tip workers in our state in 20 years. It's the same approach we took to creating new clean energy programs that would actually be accessible for working families. And to expanding overdose prevention strategies for folks struggling with addiction. And is starting the fight to end long-term solitary confinement in our prisons. Now, in all these battles, there were obstacles, there were powerful entrenched interests, but we organized, we brought people together, and we figured out how not just to fight, but how to win. That's the work our representatives need to be doing in Washington. And that's think particularly true for all of us here in Rhode Island's 1st Congressional District. I mean, friends, this is a deep blue district, right? This is the kind of district that can support a lot more than just one more Democratic vote. This is a district that can support someone who's actually going to organize up there. Someone who's going to fight to help build power for working people in Washington. Someone who's ready to stand up to Republicans and to corporate lobbyists with every tool that they've got. And who's willing to push the Democratic Party to be the best version of itself that it can be. That is why we're in this race. And you know what's cool? We can really win this thing. To victory next Tuesday, September 5th. And like so many good things, it's a path that runs through organizing. If we can knock on enough doors, if we can make enough phone calls, if we can talk to enough of our friends and neighbors and families in this district, friends, we're gonna win this thing. And we're gonna take We need to work together. And that's why I'm asking each of you, if you're excited about this campaign, please sign up for a volunteer shift. And if you can't do that, talk to your friends and neighbors in the district. If everyone in this theater talked to 3 of their friends, man, there's not enough corporate lobbyists and corporate PAC money out there to stop us. So I want to invite you to join our campaign. I know that politics can be tough, right? It can be frustrating. It can be infuriating. But we keep at it, still. Because as heartbroken as we might feel sometimes, we remain committed to searching for possibilities, right? We remain committed to feeling hope. And speaking of hope, I can't think of anyone who represents that idea better than our next speaker. Bernie Sanders transformed American politics. Before Bernie's run in 2016 and after. And I was a state representative here before he swept Rhode Island in that primary and afterwards. And believe me, the change was dramatic. Bernie put the fear of God into countless corporate lobbyists and their politicians. And Rhode Islanders, that politics doesn't have to be about big money and power games, right? Politics can be about improving our lives. It can be about our communities coming together, young people, workers, seniors, to build a better world, to win a better future for our families, for kids like my son Asa. That's what Senator Sanders will always always represent to me. And so I want to ask you all to join me now in welcoming our friend Bernie back to Rhode Island.
Thanks for being here today. And let me thank all of the speakers before me. Let me thank Sarah Nelson, who is in a resurgent labor movement in this country. When workers are standing up and fighting for their rights, Sarah is one of the great union leaders we have, and I thank her. Let me tell you why I am here to make sure that Arron becomes the next Congressperson from Rhode Island. Brothers and sisters, we are living in the most difficult times in our lives. And if sometimes you feel a little bit overwhelmed, and sometimes you get a little bit depressed, and sometimes you feel anxious, trust me, you are not alone. The problems we face are extraordinary, but I believe now, and I have always believed, that when we stand together, working people and seniors and young people and black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, when we are prepared to take on the greed of the big money interests, nothing will stop us. Is something that he already said. We just don't need another Democratic vote in Congress. We need people who have the guts to take on powerful special interests and fight for the working class of this country. Now, I am proud of what we have accomplished in the last several years, and we should not minimize that. Remember, 3 years ago, in the midst of the worst public health crisis in 100 years, in the midst of the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, small businesses going out, hospitals being overwhelmed, schools closing down, workers without jobs, we passed the American Rescue Plan, which put the working people of this country back on their feet. No small thing. After years and years of bullshit about the need to rebuild our infrastructure, we put tens of billions of dollars into roads, into broadband, into water systems and wastewater plants, and we're creating hundreds of thousands of jobs doing that. We have not gone far enough, but we did pass putting more money into clean energy than at any time in the history of this country. And today, unemployment in America is all of 3%. That's good news. But what Arron knows, what you know, and what the working people of this country knows, is that while we have some good accomplishments behind us, there is an enormous amount of work yet to be done. Brothers and sisters, this is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And yet 60% of our people here in Rhode Island and Vermont, all over this country, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. And millions of workers are trying to get by on starvation wages. Meanwhile, the billionaire class has never, ever had it so good. Their problem is they can't figure out how they can spend all of their billions of dollars. How many homes they can buy, how many yachts they can buy, how many wonderful private schools they can send their kids to. Our job now is to create an economy that works for all and not just a handful of billionaires. So at the top of the list is we are going to have to tackle the outrageous level of income and wealth inequality that exists in America today. Now, they don't talk about it much. They don't talk about it much in Congress. We don't talk about it much in the corporate media. But the reality is that you got 3 people or more wealth in the bottom half of American society. That is obscene. That is immoral. That has got to change. And whether they like it or not, the billionaire class in this country is going to start paying their fair share of taxes. And we don't talk about it much. I mean, one of the problems that we have is that the most important issues facing the working families of this country are not talked about in Congress or in the corporate media. But Arron understands those issues. He will talk to them. He will fight for those issues. So there's another issue out there that we don't talk about, that is concentration of ownership in America. You know, we have this myth in America that we are a nation of small business and competition and vigorous startups. That is a myth. The reality is that in sector after sector, Wall Street and the financial community, the media, agriculture, transportation, energy, you name it, fewer and fewer large corporations control what is produced and what we purchase. And we need leadership in Congress to say, you know what, we're going to start breaking up those monopolies. We're going to help small business. And one of the myths that's been circulating in recent years is that the inflation that we have gone through, and we're thankful that inflation has gone down from 9% to 3%. That's pretty good. But one of the myths is, well, you know, inflation took really because of the war in Ukraine. It's because of the broken supply chains. That ain't the reason. The reason this country has experienced the level of inflation that it has is primarily, not totally, but primarily because of corporate greed. When you go to the grocery store, brothers and sisters, and you pay high prices for food, understand that the food industry is enjoying record-breaking profits. When you fill up your gas tank at the service station, understand that ExxonMobil and their friends are enjoying record-breaking profits. When we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, understand the pharmaceutical industry is making tens of billions of dollars a year in profits. And on it goes. These rulers of the universe think they have a right to have it all, and what Arron believes, what I believe, and you believe, we are going to prevent that from happening. We don't need people who have tens and tens of billions of dollars who then use that money. They don't stick it into under their mattresses. Then they go out in a corrupt political system and buy elections. So we got a hell of a lot of work in front of us. Number one, the very top of my list, is we got to overturn this Citizens United. Of elections. Democracy is not billionaires buying elections. It is one person, one vote. Number two, and Arron touched on this, as a nation, we have got to join the rest of the industrialized world and understand that health care is a human right. There is something extraordinarily wrong when we are spending almost twice as much per capita on health care. $13,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country. And yet you got 85 million Americans who are uninsured or underinsured, and we don't have enough doctors, or nurses, or dentists, or mental health practitioners. We need to take on the greed of the insurance companies and pass a Medicare for all single-payer system. When in America we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. I have taken Americans, people in Vermont, people in the Midwest, over into Canada, and they bought desperately needed medicine, same exact product, for 1/10 of the price that we pay here in this country. Greed is the word. The pharmaceutical industry, believe it or not, has 1,800 paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C. Former leaders of the Democratic Party, former leaders of the Republican Party, working overtime to make sure that tens of millions of Americans cannot afford the medicine they desperately need. And Arron is going to join me in telling the pharmaceutical industry, we are going to end that greed. We're no longer going to pay the highest prices. And Arron understands that education and the needs of our young people have everything to do with the future of this country. There was once a time, not so many years ago, when the United States led the world in the number of our people who were college graduates and in the quality of our public educational systems. That is not the case today. Today, insanely, we got 45 million people who are struggling with student debt for the crime of trying to get an education. We need fundamental reform. We need to make our public colleges and universities tuition free. We need to cancel student debt. How can we compete in a global economy if we do not have the best educated workforce? And our job is to make sure that we do that. And when we look to the future, we also look to the growth of artificial intelligence and robotics. And in my view, you can look at that very important issue in one of two ways. You can say that it is all right for the large corporations who are going to use robotics and artificial intelligence to throw millions of workers out on the street as they enrich themselves. Or you can look at the new technologies and say, wow, we are going to see a significant increase in worker productivity, and it is going to be workers who benefit from that increased productivity. Instead of talking about throwing workers out on the street, we should be talking about reducing the work week to 32 hours a week without crossing pay. And when we talk about the issues that we face, they are not only economic, they are not only social, but they also are obviously issues dealing with climate. I was just on a TV show this morning, and the guy who was on before me was talking about, a Republican guy was talking about how climate change is essentially a fraud. And that type of discourse is not only pathetically stupid, it is incredibly dangerous. Anybody who has eyes to see understands what climate change is doing not only to this country, but to the entire world. Yes. Right? Phoenix, 31 straight days of 110 degrees. My own state of Vermont, the worst flooding that we have seen since 1927. 4,000 homes damaged, 800 businesses damaged. You're seeing in China flooding, which has displaced 1.5 million people as the temperature there goes to record levels. In Arron, they had to shut down their country because the temperature was so warm. Massive heat waves in India. In southern Africa, the poorest part of the world, millions of people are facing hunger and starvation because of droughts and flooding and their inability to grow their crops. In my view, this is not the moment for another Cold War with China. This is not the time to increase military spending. This is the moment to bring the world together so we don't continue to kill each other, but we work together against the universal threat of climate change. So what this campaign here in Rhode Island is about, it's not just electing another member of Congress. It is understanding that we are living in unprecedented times in American history. And if there was ever a moment where we needed leadership in Washington that had the courage to take on the incredible power of the 1%, take on the incredible power of the CEOs and their lobbyists who are all over the nation's capital, to tell the people on top that our nation, our government belongs to all of us, not just the few. To make it clear that working people in this country are entitled to a decent standard of living, decent paying jobs, decent benefits, health care as a human right, child care, educational opportunities. That is what America must be about. So brothers and sisters, this is a fight that Arron alone will not be waging, I alone will not be waging. The only way we win this is when we bring our people together. At the end of the day, and believe me, I deal with this every single moment, people on top have incredible power. They own the world, they own the media, they own corporate world, and so forth and so on. They are very, very powerful, no question about it. But at the end of the day, if we have the courage to stand up to those who want to divide us up based on the color of our skin, our sexual orientation, where we were born, our religion, if we have the courage to bring our people together, at the end of the day, 99% is a hell of a lot bigger number than 1%. So let us go forward. Let's win this election for Arron. Let's make sure that every woman in Rhode Island knows that we are behind her, that the decision to control her own life belongs to her, not the government. Let's make sure that our friends in the LGBT community know we're going to fight bigotry every step of the way. We're going to fight racism in all of its forms. Now is the time for a political revolution. Of working families coming together, telling the people on top, this country belongs to all of us. Elect Arron, and we're going to take a strong step forward in doing just that. Thank you all.